mind all of the tragedy that people are going through. I know that this is a really tough time for a lot of people of color. When it comes to dealing with COVID, a lot of our PSWs, frontline workers, are women of color, and my heart goes out to them and their families.
Thank you.
We really should be thinking about the sacrifice that people are making in order to look after us.
Yes. So that's a segue, therefore, to Dr. Ikram Syed. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Shanti, and peace be each and every one of you. We are here tonight again for our Your Story of Mercy to Humanity weekly webinar and show on Facebook Live and YouTube, wherever you're joining us around the world. We thank you. We thank our guests tonight. We have our headliner guest, Honorable Selena Chavons, who we have worked with over the years, and we are very, very honored and privileged to have her here after she has published her book that I spent the night reading. And we also have one of our special guests with us here tonight, Dr. Ikramuddin, who I've known for many years when he was only a student in the Caribbean. It seems like we all have a Caribbean connection here. and we worked together during the Pakistan flood and many other activities. But recently, I asked him to come and speak to our audience about the vaccine, given that more and more we're seeing delays in Canada, but also we're seeing the reluctance and the kind of the conspiracy theory getting the better of many people of the vaccine is not good, the vaccine is haram, the vaccine is harmful, the vaccine is this. So Dr. Ikramuddin, how have you been during COVID? And I want to say on behalf of myself and everyone else, thank you for putting yourself and your family at risk for being a frontline worker and for the humanitarian work that I know for a fact that you've been doing over the years. How have you been?
Well, thank you. First of all, greetings to everybody. Greetings of peace to everybody. Assalamu alaikum. I begin in the name of God, and thank you, Sheikh, for giving me this opportunity to join in for a few minutes. I apologize that I won't stay around for too long. I'm just in between some patients, so I'll be in and out. So I apologize. I was really looking forward to hearing your conversation afterwards, Ms. Selena, but I'll follow the recorded version after, for sure. So, we're in an unprecedented time. I was telling my kids that this is something that, no one ever fathomed, that we find ourselves in this position. I remember last February, so a year ago, I started seeing very strange illnesses. So I do urgent care, so I see everything, right? So I started seeing people coming in with really strange illnesses that didn't fit the typical illness for this season. And, my colleagues started seeing something. And then we started hearing some murmurings from overseas that there was this virus that was coming out. And then come March, it hit us full force. So before it was publicly acknowledged that there was community spread, we knew this in the front lines, seeing patients on a day-to-day basis. We knew it was out there in the community. So I was telling my kids, I go, March break started, and it was the longest March break ever. It never stopped, right? It became 1 week, 1 week, 1 week. So I was telling my children that we're living in a time unprecedented, and I pray that we never see a time like this again,
I mean.
So, so fast forward 1 year, right? So now we are, end of February, and we've learned a lot. We've learned that, how to protect ourselves, our families, our communities. We've learned how to manage the situation. We've learned that there's a bright light at the end of the tunnel, which is the vaccination. But as is human nature, there's always a lot of doubt and a lot of concern and a lot of fear around something new. That's human nature. So, everyone's trying their best to put out this word that this vaccine, especially the mRNA technology. So we'll talk about it really briefly. I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but I'll keep it very short. I'm trying to be cognizant of the time, so I'll keep it very short. So this technology is not new. mRNA technology is nothing new. We've used it in the past. We've used it for cancer therapies. We've used it for development of other vaccinations. The only thing is it's never gone through all the trials to the end to be marketed en masse to the public. So that's where the difference is. It's never been marketed to the public, but it's not new technology. It's something that we have. So this vaccine that's been developed, that's one thing. It's not new technology. Second thing is, it's rare that the world comes together on one goal. It's very rare that we see the world over, everyone pooling their resources and have a singular vision that we need to do something. So scientists, governments, funding, everything came together rapidly, and this vaccine was developed. Rapid development doesn't mean poor development. It just means there was a good collaboration. Unfortunately, the distribution is a different story, right? That's where we're stuck right now. So that's the one thing. This vaccine is safe by all accounts and information that we have available to us. It is something that's existing technology that's been applied in a novel way to create this. So now we've got the Pfizer and we've got the Moderna. And I don't know who is following this, but there's actually some reports coming out now that we can, well, not some, many reports that we can extend the time between doses. So in Israel, they've done this and they found that it's been very effective. In the UK, there's been a mixed bag, but so technology is rapidly developing, and now we have the one in Canada that hopefully, I pray we can, get this to the trials quickly, because we do need it. So in terms of the vaccine, yes, it is something that's there, it's safe, it's something that the world worked together. Now, specifically, a sheikh asked me to speak about the halalness of it, the permissibility of it. There is nothing in these vaccinations that we found that can be of an issue. I mean, I'll give a simple example. There's many other vaccinations that we use in our routine schedule for kids to be vaccinated, where there are questionable ingredients. And we know this, but no one's ever talked about it. No one's ever brought it up unless they've actually dove into it and investigated. So all of a sudden now for this vaccination for COVID, it's become a point of contention, where there is no point of contention. It is halal. I mean, there's been many different angles. Oh, it comes from a fetus source. It comes from the testing was done improperly on people, but no, it is halal. It is permissible in terms of ingredients, both from a dietary perspective, from a medical perspective, and from an Islamic perspective, which the shuyukh, the teachers of our faith, know better than I do. But this is something that we've been battling. So first we started out with, what is COVID? What are we going to do about it? How is it affecting people? Who is it affecting? We've got a good handle on that. Having said that, we've got this new variant that's popped up. And not to be Debbie Downer or someone who's always, pessimistic, but I have to say this South African variant is a problem. Here in Peel region, we've had a few cases already. I've had a few patients already who I can tell you the people are coming in much sicker than the original variant was. Now, we don't know what that means in terms of progression of illness, but I can tell you that initially when people are getting the new variants, whether it's the one that's coming out of the UK or the South African variant, both of them are causing a lot of people to get very sick very quickly. And in the hospital, they're degrading very fast. So this push for vaccinations to be taken up is very important. Sheikh, I think I only have a few minutes left. So one last point I wanted to make about vaccinations. As Sheikh Habib Ali was mentioning, by the mercy and the grace of God, I've been able to be in a position to serve people around the world in terms of medicine. And I can tell you that I spent some time in Somalia, in Mogadishu, in around 2008, 2009, in that time. And okay, the famine is the famine, and we know how famines are created. It's a human construct. We know all this. But the people who got very ill, and I can't tell you how many kids passed away from measles, right? Measles, something that we can take care of with good ease. They passed away. I mean, the first 3 patients I saw were little kids who one by one, I would sit with their parents and say, listen, our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do. And the reason these kids got so sick from measles is because there was a huge backlash against vaccinations, that people didn't trust the vaccination, that people didn't trust the ones giving the vaccine. So not to say that COVID is like measles, but the concept of not getting vaccinated due to ignorance or lack of knowledge or lack of understanding is a very dangerous thing. So Habib, you're muted, brother. I think you were saying something. I couldn't hear you.
No, I want to say thank you. You have covered some of the main points. My question, and then I will ask Selena to jump in, is that does the vaccine also cover the new variant?
So we know that it's covering partial, but not as good as the original. So the numbers range from, I believe, from 56% to 64% of coverage for the new variant. But it's nowhere like the 95, 94 that we have for Pfizer and Moderna, respectively. The vaccines aren't as effective against the new variant. They give some, but not as well. Masking, hand washing, and distancing is, no matter what, even if you have the vaccine, still have to maintain those three.
True.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Doctor, I'm also on the City of Toronto Vaccination Task Force. My previous role was in clinical trial development and working within clinical trials. And so I've been asked to be on this force, especially looking at hesitation within the Black community, vaccine hesitancy. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how even getting that first dose, you talked about how the second variant is a lot more virulent, how it has a lot more impact. How does even getting that one dose help to reduce some of those ill effects with the current vaccine that people are seeing when they appear in hospital?
Mm-hmm. So we found the majority of the studies that are coming out at the moment are from Israel and from the UK, because they've had a great ability to vaccinate lots of people. The States is still struggling, but what we found that even with the one dose, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, so I don't want to say something incorrectly, but we have found that even with one dose, there's a good protection given to people in terms of catching the virus and in terms of how sick you get with the virus, whether it's a variant or not.
Okay, that's good to know. That's hopeful.
Yes.
Selena, I have asked this question repeatedly on the show, the hesitancy and the distrust of the BIPOC communities on the vaccine, because of previous history with the syphilis vaccine and others. So do you have anything happening, for example, in the task force that is addressing that?
Yeah, so the entire task force put together by the City of Toronto has leading Black scientists and experts. I'm humbled to be a part of that group, to be honest with you. My work as a research management organization had me have an understanding. So I understand Tuskegee, I understand Henrietta Last, I understand the Sims gynecology atrocities, and so I understand the hesitancy. I also understand the hesitancy from the community based on racism that exists today. So it's not just the historical understanding, it's the fact that we don't have access. We have had racist incidents within the healthcare system as people of color, as racialized people. So we are addressing that in terms of giving people, as the doctor has said, the correct information. One of the things in clinical research is making sure people have informed consent, meaning they have to have the information from a credible source, like we heard this evening, from a credible source that allows them to make a final decision. My job on the task force is not to say someone should or should not take the vaccine. My job is to say, here's the information, here it is from a credible source, and I'll leave it to you to make that decision. What we're getting off of WhatsApp and from Facebook and from some of these other sources, we need to be very cautious about that information that we're getting and ensure that we're getting it from people who know the science behind what we're talking about.
Lovely, lovely. I'm so indebted to both of you for sharing this and for joining us. Dr. Ikramuddin, I will let you go, but you're free to join us later on. And again, thank you so much. You have the parting words.
It's you guys. Thank you so much for everything you're doing in the front lines. Everyone for having these forums, these conversations. For working on the task force, Ms. Selena, trying to get the word out and trying to get people to have as you said, informed decision with good information. The University of WhatsApp is not a accredited university by any means, but there's lots of misinformation out there. So thank you. And I apologize, I have to run. I'll try to jump back in shortly.
All right, good.
But thank you very much for the few.
Thank you.
this
Thank
time.
you. Jazakallah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is our weekly webinar, Your Story of Mercy to Humanity, hosted by Muslim Food Bank. We are Facebook Live and YouTube, and we were joined today by Dr. Ikramuddin, a doctor in urgent care, and who I've known for many years, and his work in the Caribbean, in Somalia, and the rest of the world. Today, his work with COVID-19 and the vaccine is very reassuring. And we have with us our main guest, our headliner, Selena Chavons, who have stirred up the pot recently. And she just published her memoir, and I had the fortune of knowing her for many years, but also reading her memoir. So as we usually have with our guests, we like to take them through a journey from childhood to adulthood, so you may be inspired by their story, their challenges, and of course, as Selena says in her book, their flaws as well as their beauty. So Selena, welcome and thank you for joining us. How have you, can you share with us something in your childhood, maybe in Grenada, in Toronto, that you think helped inspire the person you have become today?
Oh my goodness, this is such a great question. I actually dedicate the book to my mother. And I say that she dedicates to my mother the iron that sharpens me. And, all my life, for most of my childhood in particular, I always thought, my goodness, this woman is so hard on me. She's so strict. She's like, she actually is the personification of iron. Like, she must be made out of steel. And, I never quite understood why she was so hard on me growing up. I came to Canada when I was 2, and we came from Grenada. And Grenada has a population that is less than the town of Whitby. Right. So I was the member of parliament for a town of 130,000 people, which is greater than the entire population of Grenada. And so, her coming to Canada, I say in the book, she feared for me. I feared her while she feared for me, and treated me the way she knew the world eventually would. And I think that her toughness has, not that I think, I know that her toughness has prepared me for being in this world, in a world that continues to perpetuate racism and sexism, and one in which we have to have a strong voice in order to dismantle the status quo, and a voice, excuse me, in which you have to, if you're going to be someone who's going to be breaking glass ceilings, well, the glass is going to fall somewhere, right? If you're closest to it, you're going to get cut. And if you're afraid to get cut, then this work isn't for you. So she prepared that person that understands that doing the work means that you're going to get hurt, but that doesn't mean you don't continue to do the work.
Wow. And therefore, your name, Selena, has been taken from your great-grandmother.
Yes, you read the book.
And Selena means heavenly. And I have someone in the chat saying, well, there goes my Grenadian mother. And I could say, there goes my Guyanese mother. And the Trinidadians can say, there goes the Trinidadian mother. However, you as much as you had a beautiful and interesting childhood, it was not easy to overcome some of the challenges of someone new into the Canadian culture, new at school, new with moving from place to place. What were some of the challenges in your very early years there in school, and how did you overcome them, including acts of discrimination and sexism?
Yeah, so going through high school and university and elementary school, of course, with a Caribbean background, parents who come to this country, they're coming to this country to have a better life for their children. And understanding that education was number one. Like, you had to do well in school. It was your only job. You go to school, you come home, you bring the good marks. And so, throughout university, my lowest mark was like an 80. My highest mark was a 99. And so for the 4 years, I finished my 4 years of high school, my 5 years of high school, because back then they had OAC. I finished it in 4 years, maintained honor roll the whole time. and didn't get one award at graduation. And, you know, it really didn't dawn on me at the time. I remember my parents getting upset, like, how could you go through all this this high school and not get any awards at the end? And I just thought, well, maybe they gave it to somebody else that deserved it. But when I looked at the people that they were giving it to, I thought, well, I deserve that award. I deserve it. I was the one that scored highest in class. But that didn't happen. And so when I got into university, first person in my family to go to university here, I felt lost. I felt like that sense
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I felt lost, but I had that sense of unknowing, you know, where everywhere that I went at the University of Toronto campus was Asian and white. And so it was like this unfamiliar territory all of a sudden that I was dropped into. And I had a really hard time. You know, I had a really hard time finding myself in a place where most people find themselves. You know, when they're going to university, that's where they figure out who they are, what they want to be, how they're going to live the rest of their lives. By the end of university, I was no better understanding what I was going to do for the rest of my life than I did when I started. In fact, I felt like I was negative. I felt like I'd lost some information. So it was a challenge. But I think at the end of the day, the underlying principle is that foundation that my mother had given me. My dad too. My dad was the one that taught me how to change the tire, change the oil in my car, all of this stuff. But when I wrote the book, I really wrote it around the powerful women in my life. And so knowing that my mother had given me that foundation, once you have the foundation, you could always have something to stand up on, even when you fall.
Beautiful. Since we have named the interview Black Women Breaking Barriers for Black History Month, and you have repeatedly said you're not the single Black woman to have broken the barriers, but we know that you've broken the barrier being the first Black entrepreneur to establish a management company for clinical trials in Canada. But I want to come to that. But more importantly, I want us to celebrate some other women in your life. And one of them is Gramsci, is your grandmother that you talked about. So how does she break those barriers, in your opinion? And how did she influence you to continue to break barriers one after the other in your lifetime?
So one of the things about Gramsci is that she didn't have any formal education, but she knew she was the griot of our family. She kept the medicine. She knew about all the things that would heal. She knew about all the things that we would take that would make you better. She knew how to do that. But one of the most important things I got from Gramsci, another important thing, there's one more, was her faith. Like, she understood faith in a way that could move mountains. She instilled in me that firm understanding of how you could use your faith, even at the times when you think, you know, you've done wrong things, that you've made mistakes, that you're completely flawed. She actually instilled in me that you could always reach back into that faith, reach into your source and get strength. And then that last thing is what you said, when she told me that her mother, I changed my name to Selena in 2013. And when she told me that her mother was named Selena, and her dying wish was for me to be called Selena. My parents gave me Selena as my third name. And she said, do you mind, in 2013, she said, do you mind changing your name to Selena? And I was like, sure. It was no problem. Yeah. And from then I changed my passport, I changed my driver's license, I changed everything. Like, I just changed my name to Selena. So my first name is now Selena, meaning celestial body. My middle name was my first name, was Rayon, and meaning sunshine or ray of sun. So I represent both the sun and the moon, the two heavenly bodies in my name.
Well, your radiation has taken you through some laser through some very dark places, and one of it, if you can share with our audience, what was the main challenge when you were at University of Toronto, and you wanted to push forward your studies, your career, your future, but you had challenges. And how did you overcome them?
So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I knew I needed to finish, right? It took me 6 years to finish a 3-year degree. I finished with a 1.58 GPA. It was a really tough time. And I remember my counselor coming to me and saying, "You're not going to graduate." So I was supposed to graduate in after 4 years with an honors degree. And she said, "You should just drop some courses and graduate with a 3-year degree without the honors." And I was like, no, 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 I want the honors degree. And I just really had a tough time. And finally, I understood what she was trying to tell me. So I reduced my course load. And I think this is a lesson that I think all of us, it's not just about university, it's all of us sort of trying to do so much
Right.
to please somebody, to do something that we take on more and more and more and more to our own detriment. And we don't know, look, just release the load a little bit. Just understand that you could take a couple less courses and you will actually achieve your goal. But we take on more and more and more. And I took on more and more and more and ended up not graduating. My GPA fell. So everybody that I entered university with moved on with their life. And I still had another 2 years before I was able to catch up enough to get the required GPA to graduate. But again, I go back right to the beginning. I had that foundation. So I knew I had to finish it. I wasn't going to drop out. I had to finish my university. I had to finish. What happened after would have to after. But I needed to finish the actual program.
Well, it's only recently we heard from the University of Toronto that they've had, I think, 26 Black students enter the medical program this last year. And I know that because of, I was following through with the girls graduating from University of Toronto. But you had a similar situation when you were at University of Toronto, like you didn't see yourself reflected in the classroom and the professors and the faculty and the halls. What was your first day like?
Oh my goodness, the first day. So my first class was, Bio 150, biology, first class. And, you leave high school, you're in a classroom, you have about 30 people max in the classroom. So they said your class is at Convocation Hall. So I look at the map and I'm like, okay, must be easy to find. It looks like a big building. So I go to Convocation Hall and I'm looking for the classrooms in the building. I'm looking everywhere, round and around, up into the circle of the building. I come back outside. I can't find any classrooms in there. It's just a big theater. I go back outside. I look at the building. I said, yes, this is the building. I go back inside. I'm looking for a classroom. I come back outside. And finally somebody says, "Are you lost?" I said, "Yes, I'm looking for Convocation Hall." And she says, "You're standing right in front of it." And by the time I actually got into the room, my first class, my first entry, I was on the third balcony of Convocation Hall, looking down at this little itty bitty professor. And he says to everybody, "Look to your left and look to your right." And he says, 2 out of 3 of you will be out of here by the end of the year. You won't make it. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, I'm done. Like it was just that, it was almost like a foreshadowing for the rest of my university career. And not only did I look to the left and right of me and not see anybody that looked like me, but I was actually at the back of the class at that moment. And it was a humbling and almost humiliating experience at the same time.
Lovely. You said foreshadowing. That experience was foreshadowing because that led on to so many other experiences in different places that you have been. One of the places that you often visit is Grenada. And I had the fortune of visiting Grenada a few times. And where your grandmother lived, I visited Grenville, actually. I had a gentleman named Yusuf, tall. I still remember how tall he was. But he was a medicine man, you could call him, in the village. So there's a lot of nutmeg wisdom in Grenada that may be rubbed off on you, that in your latter years in politics and today, that you found yourself finding things like courage and resilience and love and wisdom and just being authentic about yourself. Can you talk to us a bit about that? Because a lot of us on the show here, we come from countries where we still feel that it has a huge hole upon us, and uh, and yet still we're Canadians and we're proud to be Canadians. So is there something from Grenada that really contributed to you?
Well, Grenada is the island of spice.
Yes.
So, so when people are like, why is Selena so disruptive? Why is she so spicy? I mean, it runs in my veins. So I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. But when we talk about sort of those mistakes and those things, like the things that create us and make us who we are, one of the things that we have to remember is, our education is one thing, our work experience is another thing. But as people of color, we navigate the world. We travel from our Grenada, which is a small country. We travel from Guyana, Trinidad, wherever we come from. We navigate through Canadian systems with that intersecting identity as people of color, as women, as immigrant people. We navigate that system. That experience, that navigation actually adds value to us. It adds value because we're able to see things from a different light. I'm able to see things from a Grenadian perspective. I'm able to see things from an immigrant perspective. I'm able to see things from a perspective of a Black woman. I'm able to see things from different perspectives that most people don't see. So that is valuable. When we go into institutions and organizations, therefore, that value becomes an asset to those organizations. And it's one thing that I really want our communities of colors to understand, how valuable their experiences are. We try to fit into this Canadian system because, we're now in here and we need to fit in somehow. But we sometimes hide the fact that, we're from Grenada, we have an accent, we small island people, whatever we want to say, I don't know, right? We don't want to bring me food to work, all kind of things. Right. But we hide those things instead of saying, that is valuable to us. Don't hide it. This is the asset that these organizations bring. And whether or not those organizations want to use that asset is on them. But we need to know that we are valuable enough, and all that experience brings is an asset to organizations. And I could actually quantify it for you, but I'll answer that in another question.
Well, I love that the fact that you keep saying it's an asset to us.
Yes.
And Canada was based upon multiculturalism and celebrating our diversity. As the Prime Minister often say, celebrating your diversity.
Diversity is our strength.
Diversity is our strength. But sometimes this is Black History Month, and we're still celebrating Black history because we still have anti-Black racism. We still have the lack of knowledge of the contributions of, from the times of those who fought against slavery until the civil rights movement, and currently the likes of George Floyd and others that we are fighting against. So my question to you is that you entered into business and you were uncertain of how that would be, but you turned out to be this incredible, successful first Black female in a very unique and rare field of clinical studies management. So how did that happen? And maybe you could give us a little juicy story or two of what was it like that you faced in the boardrooms in the context of being a female and Black?
So it's interesting. I wasn't able. So after finishing university, I went back to school because I wanted to bump up my marks. I went back to school, took a research course, was a research student, a research coordinator, a research assistant, research coordinator. Did my first MBA and then wanted to become a research manager. So I sent out applications, and whenever you send out an application, you're supposed to file it and then follow up and things like that. So I sent out 732 applications. I got 4 interviews.
Wow.
2 second interviews, 0 jobs. I was told I was overqualified and I didn't have enough managerial experience. And so I thought, oh my goodness, at this time I have 2 kids, I have my husband, so I have to make money. So I decided I would start this company. And when I started the company, I made a conscious decision because I was working in research. In every one of those positions that I had, they were usually white men that I worked for. So when I started the company, I said, you know what? I'm not going to show my face. I'm going to put my ego aside. I'm not going to put my face on any of my brochures or anything. I just put the company logo and the company name, Resolve Research Solutions, Inc. And I advertised the company just based solely on its service, my commitment to service, what I could deliver for you, how I could do that. And I didn't show up until those contracts were signed. If I'm not making money, I'm not showing up to your office. Right? And so there was one time when I walked into an office and, you know, I'm there for my, say it's a 11 o'clock meeting. I show up at early. I'm always early, just like I was today. I show up at least 15 early. I don't care if I need to drive there or Zoom. I show up early and the physician says, I'm busy right now. And so I said, okay. I'll wait because I'm making money whether you make me wait or not. So I'm waiting there and he comes back. He says, where's my 11 o'clock? They're late. He doesn't know who it is. And I said, excuse me. No, I'm not. And the look on his face was so like you could actually see him saying, I wasn't expecting you.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting a black person. I wasn't expecting a woman, and I wasn't expecting a young person, right? I was younger then, but I wasn't expecting that as the owner of a healthcare-based research firm, like working in brain research. And, you know, in that moment, like I actually stepped, and this is what I call a moment of grace, where you could stand in your truth and your power without having to exert any force. Like I was able to stand up in that moment and just walk into that office, knowing that on authority, on my service, on my ability to do this work, that I was walking into that office. And so it was a humbling moment, I think, for him. And he had to adjust sort of his preconceived notions of what business owners looked like after meeting me. But I was able to actually understand the power that I held too as a business owner.
So did you, was any form of a trauma at that time showing up with you in terms of how you're getting this pushback from the corporate world, white men in positions, at the same time, on the other hand, you know, you were having your struggles in the community to establish yourself and your family. Do you find that it was traumatic?
You know what? Because I didn't show my face. I didn't have to deal with that.
Right.
I didn't have to deal with any racism. I didn't have to deal with the sexism. I didn't have to deal with that because the logo was green and orange. So nobody actually quite knew. There was no feminine side to it. There wasn't there was nothing that could identify me. So it wasn't there at all. And I just continued to succeed after the Black Business and Professional Association Harry Jerome Award, the Toronto Board of Trade Entrepreneur of the Year, first Black woman, I'm sure, to win that award. It just kept growing and growing and growing and having success. And eventually I had to show my face because people knew who owned the company after a while. But no, that was a moment where I was able to protect myself from some of those harms.
Beautiful. These days we have the screen to protect ourselves, but in those days you had the fax machine.
Yeah, right.
I wanna take this moment again to welcome everyone who is joining us here on YouTube and Facebook Live and Zoom. We are blessed to have with us our beautiful and talented and smart, and of course, a warrior that has fought and broken ceilings after ceiling. We are celebrating Black History Month, and today we are celebrating a Black woman who has broken ceilings for us here in Canada, Selena Chavons. I thank everyone for joining us. And Selena, I have a question for you, is that lots of us on the show may not be aware of this, the prestigious Harry Jerome Award that has been established and given to so many of our great achievers here in Canada from the Black community, including, business people, clergy, and others. Can you just speak a bit about the Harry Jerome Award?
Yeah, so the Harry Jerome Award is presented every year, a number of different categories by the Black Business and Professional Association, and I really want to thank them for celebrating excellence in our community. And they give awards. I won mine for young entrepreneur, but in science and technology and sport, in community development, lifetime achievement, really taking the moment to celebrate us, to celebrate some of the achievements that we have. And I remember actually applying for that award and just thinking, there's no way that I would win. There's so many great organizations out there, and understanding that you have a community of people who are standing behind you, who will celebrate your success and your achievements with you. I really have to commend the Black Business and Professional Association for the work that they continue to do.
Thank you. Congratulations again for that and for all your many awards. I know that one of the things that you actually entered to do, and when you talk about authentic person, this is for me a real case of your authenticity, is that you strove very hard to give back to the community at a time when you had let's say, the wherewithal, and you did not, you were not shy to make yourself known, and to whenever you were giving back to the community. Dr. Vidal Chavans, your husband, yourself were there. And one of those awards that you will actually give back to, I was there supporting them every year, was the Aroni Award, established on behalf of an Ethiopian doctor. Well, how did it feel in those days when you were getting the opportunity to actually to give back to the community that you for so long saw struggling, you for so long saw traumatized, for so long saw discriminated, and today here you are as a successful Black woman with her husband giving back to the community? How did it feel? I want really to inspire our audience on this point, because lots of our young people today who are listening or who will be listening after, they always question themselves that, would they be able to do this? Someone did this for them. Would they be able to do this?
So the answer to that is yes. And I'll take this from two perspectives. Number one, my husband and I, so when I started my business, we didn't have any money. And we had moved back from the UK. We were living in a small basement apartment, a small first floor apartment in Ajax. We had no furniture. We had a bed for my daughter and a mattress. Every other piece of furniture, our kitchen table, our couch, our little thing that we put our TV on, the little hutch, a desk. What else do we get? There were a couple of other little things that we got. We got either given to us by friends and family, or we on Monday nights in Ajax where we lived, man, people will throw out some nice things. And we had enough, we were humble enough to be able to go out, pick those things up, sand them down, paint them, bring them into our little apartment and dress up our little apartment. But I say that because, our young people today usually see the end result. They say Selena, she's the prime minister, a parliamentary secretary to the leader of a G7 country. She's a parliamentary secretary to Justin Trudeau. She has a nice house. She has a nice I don't have a fancy car. I have a Ford. But she has a relatively nice house. She has a nice family, this and that. And they don't see the blood, sweat, and tears
right
that goes into getting here. They don't see when I was putting my hand on people's things that they threw out and holding onto it and putting it in my car and walking home with it. They don't see that. They don't see the struggle. They don't see how many times I've cried. They don't see me staying up until, all working 20-hour days in that business. And so when we got to a point of success, quote unquote success, because it's defined differently for me now. But when we started to make money, the first check that I made in Resolve Research Solution, the first one, this is after almost a year and a half of not making any money. The first check was the entire down payment to our first home. But you had to go through a year of picking things out of people's trash,
Right.
not having money, trying to find where you're going to get these things together. My husband worked Dr. Chavan now. Before he wasn't no Dr. Chavan, he was working he was teaching high school, he was teaching night school, and he was working at the Home Depot in Pickering in the paint department. He was working 3 jobs so that I could start this company. So now when we talk about giving back, I know how hard it is to struggle. I know that pain, I know that hurt. So I'm going to give back to those communities, because to whom much is given, much is expected.
Right.
So I know I need to give back to Mesvin Hale for the Aroni Awards. I know I have to give back to the Amani program at U of T, because racialized kids, I want to see them go to university. I want myself and my husband to show up at these events so that young Black people, young people of color could see, look, here's a couple of color in making an investment in us. But I said I was going to go back to how the quantitative amount of that value of our young people. And I'm going to just take a moment to say what that is. McKinsey & Company is a global consulting firm. They actually did a study looking at what the cost of racial inequity is in the United States. They quantified that amount where you keep people of color out of the workforce. What is that going to cost the United States? They quantified that at $1 to $1.5 trillion. That is 6% of the GDP of the United States by 2028. That is what the cost of keeping some of these young people out of businesses, out of opportunities. That is what it costs the United States. So that is what our young people are worth. They are worth trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
That is the asset that I was talking about. That is the asset that companies need to recognize. That is the value that they bring by their experience, and therefore is an asset. When they looked at women who were given the tools that they needed to maximize their potential, and I'll invite people to look up these McKinsey reports. If the women globally were given the tools they needed to reach their maximum potential, it was a $28 trillion investment into our global GDP. This is what we're talking about. That is the assets that we hold. But they call us minorities. They call us marginalized. They call us people on the periphery. That's the value that we have. That's who we are. So we have to bring that value. And when we're able to get to a point where we could return that value to our communities, it is an expectation that we do so.
Wow, I love how you quantify that. And of course, the adage that behind every successful man is a woman, or it takes a village to raise a child. Again, you work in international development, so you definitely know how important it is to invest in women and children, so those communities can grow out of poverty. If you could share with us your intention to run into politics. You became the MP for Whitby and entered into Parliament. I'm sure at one time you must be thinking, this is a travesty of my authenticity. I was never meant to be a politician. And on the other hand, you must be hearing Ramsey telling you, go girl, go, make a difference. You have been a trailblazer and you will make it. So talk to us a bit about that very exciting part of your life.
So politics was interesting. I'm an interesting person. So I almost divide up my political 4 years into 2 years. The first 2 years, I was just trying to figure it out, right? Things were happening. I was trying to figure out my space, how I fit in. I was the only Black woman elected in the 42nd Parliament. So out of 338 members of Parliament, there's only one. Currently, there's still only one, Marcy Ian. Of course, we know Anna May Paul is the leader of the Green Party, but she's not an elected official yet. She's not in Parliament. So there was only one. In fact, that was the second Black female a parliamentary secretary to a prime minister. The first one was also Grenadian, Jean Augustine. So people say there was something in the water in Grenada, something in the Grenadian women water. I don't know what it is, but but we, you know, so the first year I was really trying to fit in. I was trying to fit into the system. Now I'm going to preach a little bit because I think it's important that people understand our democratic institutions and what we call systemic racism. Our democratic institutions, Parliament, actually was built on exclusionary principles. It didn't include women. We didn't have the right to vote. It didn't include Black people. It didn't include Indigenous people. So it's built on exclusion. That exclusionary principle was reinforced by the status quo of that exclusion was reinforced by oppressive and racist policy. The Indian Act, anti-Black immigration policy, residential schools reinforce that status quo. So when you show up there, when I showed up there wasn't even a dress code for women, right? There was no dress code for women in Parliament because we weren't supposed to be there.
Wow.
Right. So you're talking about a system in which you weren't really designed to be there, and you show up as the only Black female. So it really was this kind of, it was almost like you were dropped into a vat of Jello, you know, and you're trying to figure yourself out in this space. And I kept saying to my husband, something's killing me.
What color Jello is that?
Boy, don't worry about that. So anyhow, it's Jello, pick a color, it don't matter. So, you know, you dropped in, and then at one point I said to my husband, this job is killing me. Like there's something about it that's making me uneasy. And at some point, I'm just gonna have to drop the gloves off. So the Gramsci, who is really, you know, my grandmother who's soft and squishy, but my paternal grandmother, Mrs. Caesar, her spirit had to come in at some point. And I said, the gloves have to come off. September 2017, that's it. And you know Vidal. Vidal is a very kind of nice guy. He's like, babe, don't take the gloves off. Nobody wants you to do that. So I said, no, I need to show up as myself at some point, because I'm hearing stories of people who have mental health issues. I'm hearing stories of little Black girls being pulled out of the classroom because their hair is too poofy. Teachers are pulling it up and putting it in little elastic bands. They're not able to graduate because they have braids in their hair. And so in September of 2017, I decided to put the braids in my hair and do the video. And that was the first. Then when I started talking about like racism, when I started talking about equity, when I started talking about those kinds of things, I was getting gaslit. And when you talk about gaslighting is one thing when you're talking about regular issues. When you start talking about racism, it's a whole nother level. I had death threats against me. I had death threats against my children. I was called like the most racist MP in Canada. There was so many things that were coming at me. I had no choice. You know, at that moment you think, do you stay? Do you continue to do it? Or do you stop? And when I think about people like Martin Luther King, I always quote Derek Bell in the book, Faces at the Bottom of the Well. He talks about Martin Luther King in this book, and he talks about the courageous struggle that Martin Luther King had. And he said part of that struggle was the need to speak truth as Dr. King viewed it, even if that truth alienated rather than unified, upset minds rather than calmed hearts, and subjected the speaker to general censure rather than acclaim. So even if you were alone, even if you were pushed aside, if you were standing on the right side of history, you kept going. So that fire, that passion kept me going in those last 2 years.
Selena, I love the passion and the authenticity that you have shared of that. But two things I want you to delve into was that your contributions in that tenure, your contributions were immense. So in two ways, I would like you to share with us. Internationally, you traveled because you were now the Permanent Secretary for International Development Minister. And locally in Canada, you drew the Black Caucus and started fighting and advocating for the Black community. And one of those contributions, I must say, and congratulations, is that this is a Black History Month, but a few years ago, we were able to establish a $10 note with Viola Desmond from Halifax. And you were the one who suggested pointedly and poignantly to Bill Morneau about that. And we, everybody was rushing to buy the $10. I keep it in the wallet, which I did, and being so proud about it. So that was a proud moment for you. Can you share with us those two areas of your contribution?
So working in international development was the best job I've ever had. Really being able to understand what happens with women in the global South. We are now living in a global pandemic. We're facing racial inequality. We haven't gotten rid of climate change. And we see that there's a international refugee crisis. 70 million, plus over 70 million people who are stateless, meaning they have no rights. If you don't have a state to call your home, you don't have rights, right? That's just it. So we have an opportunity I had an opportunity to represent Canada in Japan, in Ghana, in the Caribbean, especially, which was really nice for me to sit at a table making announcements for funding for the Caribbean with a Grenada flag behind me. And it gives me chills thinking about a Grenada flag behind me and a Canadian flag, knowing that I'm a daughter of the soil. Yeah. Representing both of those. So making those investments, really establishing that relationship, whether at the World Bank or at the International Development Bank, because Canada represents a lot of the Caribbean nations on those international bodies. So being there representing and ensuring that I'm speaking up for small island developing states, saying what we need to do, the investments we need to make when hurricanes hit, when things go bad there, that we need to step up, we need to give and do more. On the local level, I can't take all the credit for some of the things that happened. Yes, I was quite vocal with Viola Desmond. I actually pulled Bill Morneau aside and said, don't go anywhere. I need to tell you why you need to have Viola Desmond. And I was very passionate about that. I'm hoping that influenced it, but I can't say it was the only thing that influenced it. But a lot of really historic things happened during that 42nd Parliament. The recognition of the UN Decade for People of African Descent. Two conversations I had with the Prime Minister in 2016. And then the first time ever in Canadian history, the Black community being named in a federal budget. Was it enough? No. And it ended up costing me though. So as much as there were some great things that happened, I think what I started to see, especially in 2017, was the more vocal I was about issues, the more I started being excluded from a lot of the political process, because I just wanted to push them to do more. We were a majority government. I wanted to push them to do more. Our communities are dying. We need help. We needed to repeal mandatory minimums. They were unconstitutional and disproportionately impacting Black and Indigenous people. We have 40% of children in children's aid in Toronto. We see what's happening with COVID. In Toronto, 52% of the population is racialized, but they experience 80% of the impact of COVID-19. 9% of the population of the city of Toronto is Black, but they experience up to 30% of the impact of COVID-19, 25% of hospitalizations. We really need to think about how, what is happening in terms of policy and development, and not just keep applauding the government every time, we get a few crumbs off the table. I know what the bounty at that table looks like. There's big food on that table. And I'm not about to take the little bits that fall off. No way. So when people say, Selena, why are you attacking the government? Look, I'm not attacking you. I'm just asking for better. I'm asking for our fair share. That's what I'm asking for.
Wonderful. So we are getting the breadcrumbs. If the Black community in Canada should follow Jamaica in asking Great Britain for repatriation, then those few $1 million that we're getting to fight crime and to help us in the as an example, I'll give you this example. As our food bank, we work in Jane and Finch for the last year, as you know, I work in corrections as well, and it's so ridiculous the amount of violence as well as poverty in Jane and Finch, and that was only one of the areas. And in return, the big organizations get the funding, and the grassroots organizations are the one that are struggling to bring the hampers and bring relief to the families. They don't get any funding. So I saw the city of Toronto put out something recently that they will start paying attention to grassroots organization.
Right.
So it's indeed we in a very stifling situation when it comes to the Black community. Can you talk a bit about what the fallout meant for you and your new path that you have entered? Now you call it the, Black coffee, no sugar, no milk, being authentic, finding your voice. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking, but if you could see this, is the book I bought. I love Aita Sadhu and her work at the different book lists. So I was so happy that I got an opportunity to support Selena's book launch at Aita Sadhu's different book list, just close to her alma mater, actually, close to the University of Toronto. And I got it in the mail and I've read it through and through. And, we all have lots of questions about Selena and why she did leave the government and why she was, why she spoke about depression, why she did give up her position in politics. But the answers are in this book. So I've been promoting this book on my social media, and I hope you guys can find the opportunity to look it up on Amazon and buy it. Selena, talk to us about your new path, please.
The new path, it's really steeped from some of the struggles that I've had. I call politics the most painfully beautiful experience that I've had, right? And oftentimes we go through painful experiences and we think, oh my goodness, why is this happening to me? And we totally forget to sometimes reflect on them and possibly even appreciate some of the moments that you're going through. After leaving politics, I took some time to reflect forcibly because I had to write a book. I was contractually obligated by Penguin Random House Canada to do it. But I was reflecting on my time there and really understood that, that a lot of the pain that I was feeling required me to sort of open myself up, look at all the parts of me that were hurting, that were painful, that were not so great. And when you say your cup is full, I realized that my cup was full, but it was full of pain and junk. And as I was writing the book, it was a really cathartic experience. I was writing things and that pain was being released. That shame was being released, that guilt was being released, that hurt was being released. And it allowed me to fill the cup with things that I love. So right now, I'm living in the now. I'm living in the moments. I'm living in the greatest gift, which is the present, right? And really just opening myself up to the bounty of the universe. People always say, Selena, what's next? And I said, what's next is that I'm enjoying right now. I'm just enjoying right now. And I think for me, as someone who is type A personality, always planning what's happening, what's next. If I was doing that at this moment, I wouldn't have enjoyed the success of this book. This book debuted at number 4 on the national bestsellers list. Like, that is some real unheard of stuff, right? I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting it to resonate with people. I wasn't expecting it to do so well. This is my copy. I wrote this book and look how many notes I have in it. Like I didn't write it. I have notes in it. I'm like underlining stuff. I'm like, well, you wrote this book. And it's interesting when my daughter read it, both of my daughters read it. My son hasn't read it yet. But my daughter, we have dinner every night together. They're knocking on the door because they're like, what are we going to eat, Mom? But every night we have dinner together. And when the book came out, she got her copy. I signed it to her. And she went downstairs. She started reading it. And she came upstairs and she was like, oh my God, I love this book so much. It's like the backstory of my life. And she's reading it because I talk about all my pains in here. So I was talking about the struggles in our marriage. And she comes upstairs and she goes, oh my goodness, I wonder if Selena and Vidal make it. And we're both sitting at the dinner table. I'm like, a spoiler alert, we make it. We're still here.
Yeah.
But
I love the fact that you've been honest with your kids, the way you talk to them, anything, you know, that as you said, Western parents are stuck to the bees and the
the birds, and if they
the
told me
birds
a
and the
little bit
bees,
about the bees, that
but you were vividly candid with your children. So being
well,
candid,
because they're in a different world.
yes.
So my parents came here to make a better life for them. I need to make here better for my children, right? So that means I have to do things differently. These kids have an iPhone in their pocket. They get so much information. I want to make sure I'm filtering that information and protecting them. So I'm not going to give them the half-baked version and then send them out in the road. And then they say, well, I didn't know. I saw this on the internet. No, I'm going to tell you exactly what you're going to see on the internet. I'm going to make sure you know truth from fiction. Otherwise, I'm setting them up. I'm setting them up for failure. When my parents came here, yes, they gave me, like, you know, the birds and the bees nice version, but we didn't have access to the internet. In fact, when I tell my children I didn't know how to access my email, they're like, well, what do you mean? What does that even mean? They can't even understand what that means, that we just got the internet. They're so far advanced.
Yeah.
We need to try to sort of keep up. You know what I mean?
Thank you very much, Selena. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to a close there. Our interaction with Selena tonight can go on for on, but we are very, very honored and blessed. And I have Dr. Panjwani, who I've interviewed before. He has a question for Selena. I have Walid Kogali with us, you know, the activist from downtown Toronto, who has been with us before I've interviewed. He would like to also say hello to Selena. And we will call back Dr. Ikram Uddin if he's there to come on back, and we will take a few questions more from our audience to both Selena and Ikram. Dr. Panjwani, the phone is yours.
Oh, thank you. The podium is mine too.
The podium is yours. You have a second Jean Augustine in the house.
Selena, we have met. You are.
How are you?
I'm fine,
So
and
good to see you again.
I'm very grateful that both Grenadian icons, the great women of Grenada, are in my film, which is going to be released in the near future. First of all, when you said children have a lot of information, we are bombarded by information. But the children also have to, not just the children, the youth and the adults have to learn how to filter knowledge from the information overload. And from that knowledge, how to gain wisdom. Your grandmother, your mother, and many other women, even my mother, were not educated, but they had the wisdom. There were lots of great men in India who were not educated, but they had wisdom. So I sometimes wonder whether our educational system is just giving us information, or are they even giving us some knowledge, maybe, and very little wisdom. So there's a lot of work being done by psychiatrists on the subject of wisdom. Secondly, besides the two great Grenadian women I know, Honorable Jean Augustine and yourself, there's a third one I just want to acknowledge, is Prime Minister Keith Mitchell's mother. I met her, I spent some time with her in Grenada, and at her home, you know, she had met the Pope a while ago with her son. So she is a great woman, a woman of wisdom, very independent. She lives on her own, even though she's the Prime Minister's mother and he would love to have her stay with him, but she loves to be independent. I spent a very good time knowing her.
Yeah.
So
Thank
I
you, Dr. Panjwani.
sorry.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Do you have a question for Selena?
She has said it all. I know that her struggle is. My question is this: I'm going to make a statement, and what you have said covers it all. Racism in Canada, in US, and around the world has outlived its obituarists. It prevails, and it is up to the younger generation to take the baton from Jean Augustine, from Selena, and carry on their fight to eradicate racism, bigotry, hatred. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Panjwani. Of course, Selena, you have a response?
Oh, I thought Waleed is on. No, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much. You've always been such a great supporter. And I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing in documenting our stories. It's so critically important. And that is something that I'm grateful for you and your entire team for, and your contribution to support and uplift our community and our women.
It's my duty. I think it's an honor for me to have
Next, we
known
have
all of
Waleed Kogali. Waleed, you're next.
Thank you, Brother Habib. I don't know if you folks can hear me,
Yes.
but thank you so much. Selena, big fan. Thank you so much for being vulnerable with us today. I know it's not easy, especially when you're dealing with forces of white supremacy and many folks who are invested in anti-Black racism and bigotry and the politics of fear, the rhetoric of fear, division, which we know the previous government under Stephen Harper, propagated. I never thought as a Canadian I would witness blatant acts of Islamophobia and bigotry. Organizing as an activist, even when he prorogued Parliament to shut down decisions made by the people's representatives. That's how parliamentary democracy is supposed to work. But my question to you is very simple. I'm fortunate to be represented by Masi Ian, who you know very well, and who is also, someone I got to know and respect during the by-election, especially due to her support for community benefits and her commitment to work but also to listen. But my question to you is a very simple question. How can we support Black women who are in positions of responsibility to represent the interests, not just of their constituents, but of a diaspora and also a community, a huge community, significant Black community? Because what I hope to do is to try to provide as much support as I can to Masi Ian and other racialized elected representatives, because they're dealing with challenges that are not just, systemic. They're also challenges that exist within their own parties, within the own political establishment, and that will require support that should cross partisan lines. If we want progress, we should work together to make sure that. So that's my question.
Selena could kind of respond. And
Yeah.
Next we have Carol. Carol will take you on next.
That's a very important question because we need support, but not only do we need support, we need more people to run. So not only have I had phone calls with Marcy, I've also had phone calls with Anna Mae Paul, different party, but have phone calls with her. When Leslyn Lewis was running, I had phone calls with her as well. We want to see people run. I think as a community, we are so busy sort of saying, well, we can only vote Liberal, we can only vote this, or we can only vote that. And we accept bad behavior from other people, but we don't want people, we don't want to give our own a chance. Right? So we won't support them if they run conservative, or we won't support them if they're NDP. We don't have time for that anymore. You know, we don't have time for sort of that divisiveness that continues to exist in our communities. We must support each other. We must actually make a dedicated effort. You know, when we're talking amongst ourselves, I'm Grenadian, I'm Small Island, you Big Island, you're from Africa, I'm from the Caribbean. We have all this heterogeneity within our communities. But to everybody else, we Black.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But within ourselves, we want to be chopping up, and no, we can't afford to keep doing that. We are continuing to lose out. And in doing that too, not only do we lose out, we want to have people that are within that system that are going to disrupt the status quo. So we need to urge them. So when we see them sort of pushing, breaking glass ceilings, that's when we really need to galvanize behind them. That's when we really need to say, no, you're not going to attack her today. We're going to stand with her today. But just give me a second here. I just want to do the flip side to that question. It's not all on us, right? It's not all on us. The culture of these organizations need to change. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you want to increase the number of people that are of color that enter into institutions, political or otherwise, but the culture of that organization is toxic, when you add that diversity, what do you think happens? It dies and they leave.
Exactly.
Right. So you can never grow equity, or you can never grow inclusion. You could never get to the point of equity. And lastly, we have people that are saying they woke. We have allies. Well, we've been awake for a very long time. We've been so awake, in fact, we have put the coffee on, we have eggs cooking, we have lunch made, we got dinner on the table, we got some snacks ready. These guys want to talk about they woke. Where the coffee at? You don't want to make no coffee.
Exactly.
You just want to say you woke with your eyes blinking. Well, when you wake up, you must feed the thing that you're woke to. So get yourself making some coffee, get yourself putting on some eggs, get yourself making some toast, and get yourself helping the rest of us out. But people want to just say they woke, but they don't want to act. They don't want to do the work. Right? And the last thing that we want to do, I'll just close with this, is, look, I done said that we already cooked the eggs, right? So I don't want you to come to me as an ally and say, well, I'm going to cook eggs for Black people. I already told you we made the eggs. I would like you to help me make more, donate to me buying more, or help me, give me resources to be able to make another omelet. You know what I mean? So lend your resources, stop reinventing the wheel, stop consulting, stop asking us questions, get to work. Now that you woke, get to work. We've been working for a very long time.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Selena. Carol, can I get you on? And then we will take a
Thank you for your work, Waleed. Thank you for your activism. Thank you for your continued work.
Thank you, buddy. You're awesome.
Thank you for the acknowledgement, Selena. Thank you.
Yeah.
We
Next,
appreciate it.
by the way, I'll be interviewing Anami Paul on March the 17th. And again, because as Selena says, we support our people regardless of which organization they're entering.
Yeah.
Carol, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Selena, for your great presentation. It was very motivating. It was a very motivating speech. I'm sorry about my English. So,
français?
Yeah.
Je comprends français mieux que je parle en français. Dis en français si tu veux.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I will improve my English.
Okay.
So it was such a great
Merci
achievement
beaucoup.
and motivating speech. So I have been touched about all you said, and thank you. So I have 2 questions, but before I would like you to know that this was the best is coming. This was just the beginning. The best is coming for you.
Merci.
So
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. My first question is what was your motivation? So what was your motivation to achieve all of these paths in your life? And my second question is how to fit somewhere where you are not supposed to get because of your color or maybe your lack of experience. But you have a great ambition for yourself. So how can you fit somewhere where you are not supposed to fit to get? Thank you.
Carol, this is a great question.
Thank you.
First of all, I'm motivated by my children. I'm motivated by young people. They keep me pushing forward. My children are like Selena 2.0. They are so incredible. Young people are so incredible. I think sometimes adults need to get out of the way sometimes and let them sort of birth their ideas. When it comes to how do you fit, first of all, if you have the ambition, you've already fit. But let's just break this down a little bit. And I'm always nervous about answering this kind of question because it could be a little embarrassing, but I'm going to answer it anyway. We tend to want people to have confidence in us when we go into spaces, right? We want to walk into spaces. We want to fit in. We want people to acknowledge us. We want people to see us and have confidence in us.
Mhm.
But more often than not, we do not have confidence in our own space, meaning in our own skin.
Okay.
In an Instagram filtered world, we get filtered, we could, we dress up, we do all this stuff, and we're not confident in our own selves. So usually what I do, and this takes practice, is you come out of the shower, you look at yourself, and instead of saying, well, that's too flabby, this needs a nip, this needs a tuck, this needs a just appreciate yourself.
Yeah.
Appreciate who you are. Appreciate yourself in your own skin. If you do not have confidence in yourself in your own space, meaning the skin that you are in, you cannot expect someone else to have confidence in you in their space. Right? And that requires practice. But the other thing is, once you've built that up, because sometimes the imposter syndrome will set in. It's the imposter syndrome that's, making you feel like you don't belong. You belong. If you show up, you belong. The thing that I do sometimes when I'm getting nervous about, being in spaces, speaking about certain topics, is I make sure I have like straight data. I'm always reading. I'm always reading newspapers, books, articles, you name it, because I want to have the data that supports everything I say. When I say that young people are an asset, I want to be able to quantify that, citing a reference article, saying that they're worth $1.5 billion. I know how much you're worth. Like, I'm not just saying this because I feel like saying it. Well, I actually say it because I feel like saying it, but I'm actually able to say it because I know the research that supports it. Right? So always bring the receipts, have something in your back pocket that you could speak to the fact, because sometimes, we get these people in situations where we start to waver about the things that we may not be sure of. Bring those receipts with you. Constantly keep reading. And I read from anything. I read from credible sources, but I read from left-leaning, right-leaning. I want to make sure I have a full understanding of issues that I'm going to be talking about. And usually they're political, so I have to have that sort of well-rounded understanding. But the books that I have here, I read a lot because I want to make sure that when I'm articulating what I have to say, it's not just Selena said, I'm bringing some research and some data with me.
Lovely.
but this confidence in yourself
Hello.
first.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you.
Who is the other? There's another person there. Dr. Ikram, are you still there? Could you come on back if you're there? And someone else raised their hands. Selena, that reminded me of Malcolm X, who said he studied 20 hours a day while he was incarcerated, and that led him to being such a erudite scholar. He got his honorary doctorate from Harvard University before he passed away. Yes. I'll take one last question, and then we will wrap up. Andrea Saul, would you like to say something on behalf of the Lions Club? Selena, this is one of the fastest growing Lions Club in North America, started purely with lots of our folks
Hello, जी.
in the Black community from Grenada, St. Vincent.
थोड़ी दूसरी phone काम नहीं कर दी है?
And Andrea Saul is the head of it. Andrea Saul, can you go on?
Okay, मैं कल भी किया सी था.
Pleasant good
मैं
evening.
क्या फिर देर नाल phone करा तो जी
Somebody
better.
needs to
Sorry,
mute.
please mute.
Dr. Pajwani, you have to mute your phone.
A pleasant good evening, teaching everyone. Madam Serlina. Awesome, awesome word. We're so honored to be graced with your presence, knowing that you're a very prestigious person in our community, raising the barrier, breaking down walls for us. I'm glad to have met you, even though it's virtual or cyber, but in these days, anything is possible. I realized that you had said, you even read your book over and over. And just let me empower you and everyone that is on this call. You keep reading it because you did not do it yourself. You are an anointed woman. God has called you out for such a time as this, bring you out from the darkness into light. And the reason why you keep reading it because you didn't do it yourself is the Holy Ghost or the Holy Anointing Spirit that took charge and put that book together for you. So we are so honored, and we would love to connect with you. We have break barriers. I've known Chaplain Habib for a couple of years now, and we've been in the community since last year, June, giving back. We go to him, receive the food hampers, and give it back to the community, to the seniors and those who receive it. And we are so honored and blessed to have formed this club. I've chartered the club 3 months ago. I have a few, as a matter of fact, I have my executive body online here with us. I have the secretary, the vice president, the treasurer, and newest member that just came on today. So our club is #1 for Canada and #1 for North America. We have break barriers, and we are not looking at what COVID is doing, because in the midst of adversities come to propel you to the next level. So we just have to tunnel through. So we're just blessed and honored. We would love for you to give us a congratulatory message. We would love for you to give us I just put a note in your chat, so if you can grasp at it, I put my email and as a personal note, Chaplain Habib, sorry.
That's fine.
So you can connect with us so that we can have your congratulatory message in our souvenir magazine that we have to put together before the end of next month. So thank you again, and may God bless you, make his face to shine upon you, and protect you as you go out and as you come in Jesus' name.
Amen. My mom used to always tell me that every time that I'd go anywhere. That's so sweet. She would always say, "May God keep." Okay, mommy, I know.
And by the way, I'm from Guyana, but it doesn't matter where you're from.
It don't matter.
We're all one.
Thank you so much. I just copied your message. I'm going to send it to myself in my email. I just want to do it now so I don't forget. Because sometimes when I do anything, I just forget to do what I need to do.
And Whitby was my stamping ground.
Okay.
To 2013, 1991 from Whitby. I came from Whitby all the way to the west now. And
Thank you very much.
I got your message. I'll make sure I send you an email.
Okay, much appreciated.
Shyla and Foss, I'm giving you the microphone. Shyla and Foss, you have a minute or two to talk to Selena, and we will close at that. We are way past our time.
Hi, Selena. Thank you so much.
How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine. I don't need the microphone. Today's Selena's day. I actually am speechless. I have nothing to say except to say I'm grateful for the work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. If anybody didn't ask me a question or they want to stay connected, you could follow me on all of my social medias. It's I am Selena CC. I'll put it in the chat for everyone. Send me a direct message, Instagram or whatever, and I respond to them myself. So just stay in touch.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for being so kind. Thank you for your support. Thank you always for what you do in our community. If we don't say it enough, we don't give people their flowers while they're still here. Thank you so much for this opportunity to spend the evening with you, and keep doing what you're doing for our community, because we know now more than ever, we need that support. We need organizations like yours to really uplift people in a very precarious time. So thank you, sir, very much.
Hi, Selena.
Hi.
Thank you, Brother Habib, for giving us the mic. Actually, you know what? I'm just very humbled to be here and just to listen to you and follow the footsteps of great folks that, have served and have been, out there. And so the great work that you've done, I'm very blessed to be working with Brother Habib and just to be part of, working with the marginalized communities and always helping. It's a great passion of mine.
And being the former secretary for Bill Murno.
Yes, being a constituent assistant for the past, for the first 3 years for Bill Murno's office. So it's been a pleasure, and I've learned a lot from there as well. So I'm just, I'm learning still, and looking forward to still learning. And it's really been a pleasure listening to you and just your motivation and just the way you spoke. It's just so amazing, and looking forward to buying your book as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Father. I appreciate it.
Everybody kindly buy the book and check out Selena on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And it's selenachavons.com, I think.
It's www. I'll put it in the chat.
Please,
selenacc.ca.
Please. And again, we thank Dr. Ikram for sharing with us his confidence and his positive experience with the vaccine. And we will have more of these conversations. As you know, we try to encourage such conversations every week. Selena, it has been a pleasure. Your name speaks, as we say, name of nature. It speaks to your radiance. And we pray that God Almighty will continue to allow that radiance to radiate the hearts around ourselves and everyone else around here in Canada, around the world. And may God bless you and the family, and God bless everyone here on the call tonight. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, shanti, and peace with each and every one of you. You have the parting words.
Oh, I just want to say thank you, Habib. Thank you so much for everything. You've always been such a huge supporter, and I mean, just supporting me and the work that you do in our communities is just so critically important. I just want to say thank you. I want to say, whenever you need me, you know that I'll be here. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's on the call, who's listened, who's put wonderful notes in the chat. I really appreciate it. I'll never take it for granted. So thank you all so very much. Thank you.
Can you give us one nugget from your book that you quoted some quotations or some proverbs? One nugget, please.
I would say as one nugget, I'll hold on. If I just read one last piece, just give me 1 second. I think one of the things that I want people to remember that's, it's not this part. Hold on 1 second. It's this part. It's right from the end of my book in the acknowledgement. And I'll just read what's here. To the people of Canada and beyond, your value is not determined by your title, and leadership does not require a title. The power has always belonged to the people. It is time that the people realize their power. It is not enough to hear my voice. We need to hear you too.
We need to hear
Oh
you.
my God.
Thank
That
you.
give me chills.
Yeah.
Wow. That give me chills. Powerful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good night, everyone. Thank you, Selena.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.